But this was the first sign in weeks that her high spirits were returning. Thomas continued to look unconvinced. "Will Abuela be able to find us here?" he asked doubtfully. "Of course," Adelia assured him. Thomas adored her mother, who had been babysitting him practically from infancy because of all the school committees on which Adelia had found herself, and, more recently, because she was working at a boutique on Main Street. "She helped me to find this house." Amazingly, for once, her mother had kept her lectures on divorce to herself and professed to see all the positives in the new life Adelia was fashioning for her children. She'd told stories about the days when the elite in town had lived in Swan Point. There had been lavish parties in this very house, she'd reported to Adelia. She'd stuck to focusing on the possibilities in the house and the quiet, tree-shaded neighborhood, not the negatives. Her mother's support had actually given Adelia the courage to move forward. To her surprise, Adelia had recognized that even in her early 40s, she still craved her mother's approval. It was one of the many reasons she'd waited so long to end her travesty of a marriage. "Can we still go to Abuela's house for cookies?" her son pressed. "Absolutely," Adelia said. "You can go every day after school if you like, the same as always." Though he was starting to look relieved, a sudden frown crossed his face. "What about Papa? Is he going to live here too? He won't like it, I'll bet. He likes our real house, same as me." Selena whirled on him. "You know perfectly well he doesn't live with us anymore. He's not coming here, not ever. He's going to live in our old house with somebody else." Adelia winced at the disdain and hurt in her oldest's voice. Ever since she'd realized that her father had been openly cheating on Adelia, Selena had claimed she wanted no part of him. Her attitude had hardened even more when she'd overheard Ernesto describing her as her mother's child, in a tone that made clear he wasn't complimenting either one of them. Adelia had even spoken to a psychologist about this rift between father and daughter, but the woman had assured her that it wasn't unusual for an impressionable teenager, Selena had just turned 13, to react so strongly to a divorce, especially when Ernesto's cheating had been so public and when he'd shown no remorse at all once he'd been caught. In fact, he'd remained defiant to the bitter end, so much so that even the judge had lost patience with him. At Selena's angry words, Thomas's eyes once again filled with tears. "Enough," Adelia warned her daughter. To Thomas and the younger girls, she said, "You'll still be able to see your father whenever you want to." Like Thomas, Natalia and Juanita looked relieved, though they carefully avoided looking at their big sister, clearly fearing her disapproval. That was yet another rift she'd have to work on healing, Adelia concluded with a sigh. Ernesto certainly wouldn't make any effort to do it. As hurt as she'd been, and as much as she'd wanted to banish Ernesto from her life forever, she'd accepted that her kids deserved to have a relationship with their dad. It would be selfish of her to deny them that. Besides, she'd had enough explaining to do to the rest of her rigidly Catholic family when she'd opted for divorce. Then, to top it off, she'd insisted on moving out of the huge house on the outskirts of town that Ernesto had apparently thought was reasonable compensation for his infidelity. Her sisters had been appalled by all of it, the scandal of Ernesto's cheating, the divorce, and the move. Keeping her children away from their father, however distasteful his behavior, would have caused even more of an uproar. Not that Adelia cared what any of them thought at this point. She'd made the only decision she could make. Her only goal now was to make this transition as easy for the children as possible. She'd do it with as much cheerfulness as she could possibly muster. She might not even have to fake it, since on some level she was actually eager for this fresh start. For now, though, she forced a smile and looked each of them in the eye. "I have an idea," she announced, hoping to turn this difficult day around. "What?" Thomas asked suspiciously. "I think we all deserve a treat."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.